I have created an Excel file I'm going to use with this video, and you can download it from my website if you want to work along with me with the same file I'm using. The link is in the video description, and you don't need to enter an email, you just download the file. I have it here in my downloads file, employeetable.xls. I will open it up by double-clicking, and we see it's just a list of employees. I'm going to make a note of the tab name, Employees. We will need that later. I'm going to close the file. I have already started a new process that I'm calling UiPath 008 Read Range Workbook. And I want to add a new folder to this UiPath project. I'm going into the Explorer window where I will right-click and come down to Add. I'm just hovering over Add, and I'm going to go over to Folder and click that. And in the pop-up where it's asking for a folder name, I will add in Data and click OK. We see the Data folder over here in our Explorer window. I'm going to right-click and open that and bring back the download folder where I can then drag and drop the employeetable.xls file into the new data folder. I can close those windows. And now we're ready for the UiPath program to read in our Excel file. The file must be in Excel format. This will not work with an open document format. The activity we're going to use to read in our Excel file is going to be the Read Range Workbook. I'm coming over to Activities, and I'll type that in right here. Read Range Workbook. And double click on it. To open it in the main sequence. To add the Excel file to this activity, I'm going to click on this folder here, the Browse for File folder icon, which opens up our project where we see the data folder that we just created. Double-clicking that will show me the employeetable.xls file, and I will click on that and then open. And we see we're going to read the employee table XLS file. And then in the box below it, it's looking for the sheet name. We made a note of that earlier. It's called Employees. And I'm adding that inside of double quotes. Next to the sheet name, we see a box for range. This is where we can select a range of specific cells to read in. In this case, we're just going to read in everything. And to do that, we're going to leave the range blank. Now there is one more thing we need to add to make this work right. And for that, we'll need to have the properties open over on the right. We are in the properties, but I also need to make sure that I click on the activity to show this activity's properties. Now before we add that one more thing we need to add, let's take a look at the Read Range Workbook properties. Up at the top, we have the display name. And we saw in the last video, if we don't change this, we will get a warning. So I will change this to Read Employees Excel File. Then we see the input section where we have the file local path filled in and the sheet name filled in. And the range is blank since we left that blank. In the next, the MISC section, we see private with a checkbox. When that private checkbox is checked, the data table will not be logged. We would use this when reading an Excel file with something like medical data that needs to be kept private. Private medical data is something that we would not want logged into the log file. We don't have that type of data here, so I will leave this unchecked. Then down below in options, we have add headers. I do want to read in the headers in this case, so I will leave this checkbox checked. But there will be times when I want to read only the data and not those headers. And for those times, I would uncheck the Add Headers checkbox. Below that, we have password, This is for when there's a password on the Excel file. We would enter that password here. We do not have a password on this Excel file, so I will leave it blank. And then we have Use Display Format. When this option is checked, fields like dates and currencies will be kept. For example, a date would be read into a variable with a type of date instead of the more generic string variable. The exact formatting may be lost, but the variable type is kept. Below that, we have output. This is what I was talking about earlier when I said we need one more thing to complete this activity. We will need a place in memory to store that spreadsheet data that we are reading in from the Excel file. And for that, we're going to use a data table. We even see it here, output data table. So to create that variable, I'm going to click in the input field, hold down Control and press K so I can set the new variable. And I will call this DT underscore employees for the employees data table. I'll press enter and we see it here, DT employees. And if I come over and click on the data manager, we'll also see a variable was created with that name, DT employees, with a data type of data table. And then the last item over here, the Use Workbook. That could be used if we already had a workbook set up. We don't have one set up here, so we'll leave this blank. So now we've completed the activity to read in the Excel file. What I want to do now is just print out the data table to the output panel with a log message activity to make sure that I've read in that data table correctly. The log message activity is expecting data as a text variable. But we can't just add .toString to the end of our data table like we did with the integer variable in an earlier video. We will need to add an activity to convert a data table to a string. And that activity is called output data table as text. And double-clicking that will add it into our main sequence. We see this activity is asking for the data table object to be written to a string. I'll start by typing DT underscore, and we see the employees data table. Clicking on that adds it into our activity, and the activity in this design window looks pretty complete, but we're actually only halfway there. Making sure the activity is selected again, and looking in the properties window down in the output section, we see that that is looking for a output type of string and it's empty. I'm going to hold down Control and press K again to set a new variable, and I'll call this str underscore employees. And pressing enter creates the string variable. Now, UiPath is expecting a string variable, so that's why it created my variable as a string. Just like earlier, it created a data table variable because it was expecting a data table variable in that field. Looking down on our variables, we see that we have a DT employees and an str employees. That's going to be the same variable, just in two different formats. And now I want to print out the string format with our log message. I'm double-clicking that to add that. My message will be the string employees variable, and the log level will be info. I'm going to update the display name of the log message to be log employees. I will also update the display name of the output data table as text to be copy DT employees to str employees. Now we're ready to run this program. I'll click on the debug run play button. And looking in the output panel, it looks like nothing happened. But if I make this panel a little bigger or scroll up, it's got a scroll bar here, we can see the headers at the top and then all the data in the data table. The data table is not formatted at all. It's all bunched together, but we can see the data table was read in properly And that's all that we're doing here. We're just proving the data table has the expected data in it. We will continue working with this data table in the next video for UiPath.